Hello, I'm Donna. In the SCA, I am Duquessa, Juana, Isabella de Montoya y Ramirez. I've been Queen of the West 2 times. I've been a Pelican for almost 20 years, and I've been a Laurel for over 40 years. My Laurel is primarily for cooking. For the last couple of decades, I have specialized in early modern, or as we say in the SCA, late period Spanish and Portuguese food. Even though I've grown up in California, my Spanish is limited, so I'm likely to mispronounce the Spanish words in this presentation. Feel free to laugh at my mispronunciations. Today I'm going to do chicken with stuffing from Francisco Martínez Montiño's Arte, cocina, pastelería, vizcochería y conservería, which was published in 1611. There will be another class in this collegio, the Collegio de Iberia, doing a broader overview of Martínez Montiño's work, and I'm looking forward to that. I'm working from a translation of Francisco's work by Professor Carolyn Nadeau. If you are interested in early modern Spanish food, I highly recommend that you Google her. She has written several papers on the topic of early modern Spanish food. She also wrote Food Matters, Alonso Quijano's Diet and the Discourse of Food in Early Modern Spain. I highly recommend this book. Professor Carolyn is also working on an English translation of Francisco Martínez Montiño's Arte, cocina, pastelería, vizcochería y conservería. When it is published, I will do my best to get the word out to the SCA cooking community. As you can see, I'll be cooking this dish in my modern kitchen. In the late 16th and early 17th century, the cooking equipment and facility would be much different. I do have a spit arrangement for cooking over a fire, but it is too small for a chicken. I had it made to do another of Francisco's recipes that Professor Carolyn has translated, for butter on a spit. It is a very silly recipe, but that is not what we are doing here today. If you have a spit over fire or charcoal arrangement at home, that would be a more authentic way to cook this dish. If you have a modern rotisserie range and don't mind doing a thorough cleaning afterwards, you may want to use that. Today we're going to cook this dish in the oven. Now, stuffed chicken may sound fairly ordinary, and usually it is. The fun part of this recipe is the arrangement and presentation of the bird. Key to that is that you get a chicken that still has her head and feet attached. If you raise your own birds or live in a rural area where your neighbors do, obtaining a somewhat intact bird may be pretty easy. I live in a city. I don't have that option. For me, either I get a whole bird from the farmer's market or I go to the Asian butcher shop. If the mainstream, or ordinary modern grocers and butchers in your area don't sell intact birds, I recommend you check out your local ethnic butcher shops. You can often find all sorts of unusual types and cuts of meat in these places. Francisco's recipe is for cooking 4 chickens at once. I'll only be doing 1 bird here today. The recipe is as follows. Chicken with stuffing. If you want to make chicken with stuffing, take a few slices of fat back and fry them, and when they are partially fried, add some onion chopped lengthwise and continue to fry. When the onion is partially cooked, add some minced meat and fry it, stirring it all with a spoon until the meat is browned. Add in spearmint, cilantro, and a little marjoram. Then, for 4 chickens, beat half a dozen eggs and add to the frying pan and stir with a spoon until the eggs are thoroughly cooked. Turn it out onto a cutting board and chop it finely. Add 4 raw eggs and season with black pepper, saffron, lemon or orange juice, and salt. This is a standard stuffing. If you don't have meat for the stuffing, you can also use hen's livers with the other ingredients. If you want to coat the stuffed chickens in batter, you can add sweet and sour flavors in the stuffing. When the chickens are stuffed and set on spits in the rotisserie, take the chicken legs, cut at the joints, and sharpen the leg bone. and stick it on the chicken's head. You will do this for each chicken so that they look like deer antlers and roast them that way. When they have roasted, coat them with egg yolks so that they totally coat them as you continue to grill, and brush on the egg yolk. You should also coat egg yolk the legs that are on the chicken's heads. When everything is thoroughly coated, take a little warm lard and put it on top. It will aerate the coating. Sprinkle some sugar on top, take them off the spits, and serve them on a bed of crumbs. They should not be served on sops because they will take up a lot of space, and 4 chickens will fill up the whole platter. They should be arranged head to back so the antlers will be over the backs.
Go.
Okay, so now we're going to start doing the stuffing. Fry a few slices of fatback. I have chopped up some bacon because that's always a good thing to use for fatback. So we're going to cook that. Render out some fat, and while that's happening, you add an onion that has been chopped lengthwise. Well, I'm taking lengthwise to mean from root to stem, so just long slices like this. Okay, stop.
Okay.
I'm going to add the onions and let those cook for a while. Stop. Okay, and now the bacon and the onions are nicely cooking. All bubbly, sizzly, happy. And the recipe says to add meat. It does not specify. I would probably generally use pork, but I have some leftover chicken meat, so I'm just putting that in because it's what I have on hand. The other thing that it says, you can also use the liver. This particular chicken did not have any of its innards, no livers or gizzards or anything, so I didn't have that on hand. I probably would have used that because I personally like chicken livers, but not today. That's what we're cooking with what we got. So we'll let that cook for a while. Okay, now we're going to chop up the herbs. The recipe said spearmint, but they just had regular common mint at our market, so I'm going to chop up some of that. And chop up some cilantro, or green coriander, or Chinese parsley as it is known in some other parts of the world. So chop that up. And it also calls for a little marjoram, and we have a small marjoram plant in our garden, so chop up marjoram leaves. Okay, I'm going to throw all these herbs into the pan with the onions and the bacon and chopped chicken meat. There we go. Stir that all around a bit. And then we're going to throw in a couple of eggs. Since it's 6 eggs for 4 chickens, I figured it's either one large, for doing one chicken, it's one large or 2 small. These are good sized eggs, so I'm going to just put 1 egg in there. Stir that around to cook, and yeah, you want to
See.
Okay, so we have turned the cooked portions of the stuffing out onto the cutting board, and next step is chop finely. So chop, chop, chop. Do or not so fine. Depends on how you like it. A little bit of texture there is not a bad thing. And then we're going to add the egg, saffron, salt, pepper, and lemon or orange juice. I've already put the saffron into the egg. Isn't that pretty, saffron? Bright colors. Okay, put that in there. And it says orange juice or lemon juice. If you can get bitter orange juice, that is what you want to use. In my neck of the woods, you can get it bottled, as you see, from the Hispanic markets. Don't use regular, eating and drinking kind of orange juice. You want bitter orange juice or lemon juice. Just a little bit. The egg has plenty of moisture in there. We don't need a lot more, or it'll just get gloppy. And some salt. And some pepper. And let's see, was that everything? Yep, that was everything. It was some stuffing. So, like that. Now we're going to mix it all together. And we have our stuffing mix. Now we need our bird into which we shall stuff this. Here is a bird. Oh, it peed on the board. Oh no, it's just juice. Okay, has a head, has feet, has a cavity into which we shall stuff stuffing. Here we go. Stuff, stuff, stuff. Stuff, stuff. Stuff all the yummy bits into the bird. Now we come to the fun part. We want to break the legs somewhat so that they will do what I think of as uncomfortable chicken yoga, because we want to bend it up. There we go. Leg broke. That one. There we go. Break the joints. And we're going to take the little small pointy knife. I'm making a hole in this neck skin and hold all of the toes together so they will go through the hole. All the toes together through the hole. There we go. All the claws, even that little spur. Okay, and now we do it again on the other side. Put the leg up until there we go, the hip bone cracks. And then we want a hole in the skin on this side of the neck. There we go. Hold all his claws, her claws, I don't know, the birdie's claws, through the hole in the neck, all the way to the spur. And there you go. You get the appearance of antlers with the legs. That is the point of this whole process. Now you want it held together in this fashion while it cooks. So you have to push it up to the joint there, and then we want to tie it. Oops, and we're going to have to tie the back end because, as you may see there, the stuff is leaking. But we'll fix that. Turn it back over, stuff the stuffing back in, because all that manhandling, or woman handling, if you will, of the bird, it just all decided to come back out. But then we shall fold it up some here and tie it so that stuffing stays inside, or at least mostly stays inside. There we go. So, and then we want to tuck our little friend's wings down here like this. So we have, okay, so we have a head, we have antlers, we have stuffing, It's a little uneven, but I'm sure you get the general notion. If you were going to present this at a high table or something, you probably will want at presentation time to put something under the head so it stays up, because floppy like that is not so cool. So we're going to go into the oven for a bit and then baste it with egg after it has cooked for a while. So there we go. Off. Okay, we are 20 minutes in to cooking the bird. It is cooking at 350 degrees. That's Fahrenheit. All you Celsius people, I'm sorry, you'll have to figure that one out on your own. But we just baste it here with the egg. Make sure to get the legs and stuff. And this basting part is why I said that if you're using a rotisserie, that you're going to have a mess afterwards, because the basting of the yolk will of course drip down, as you can see dripping down here in the bottom of the roasting pan. The roasting pan, you expect that, but if you've got a fancy rotisserie thing, you might get a bit of a mess. So we're going to do this a few more times as we cook this little fella, and we will check in again later. Okay, this is the third time of basting. So we've now been cooking for an hour, and it's looking nice and golden. This is very pretty. Now the whole thing with the head and feet is for appearances. I mean, you can eat them if you want to, but they're kind of weird. I just save them along with the rest of the carcass for the stock, because of course after you have eaten the chicken, you are going to make chicken stock, because why not? You have a chicken. So we will cook some more and come back later.
Cut.
Look at our beautiful gold bird. Isn't this lovely? We're going to give it one more dose of the egg, because the last basting is with lard, and I'm going to be using bacon drippings for that. But this is one last one with the egg. Remember to get the head and the feet. We want those gold antlers for our showy bird here. But it's turning out quite lovely. Okay, stop.
Cut.
Okie dokie. So here's our birdie. And we're going to do the bacon grease treatment here for the last little bit. Make it all nice and shiny. Francisco's recipe says it, or at least Carolyn's translation of it, says it aerates the glaze. I'm not altogether sure what she means by that, but it may just mean that it gets shiny. Or, well, it's fat. It'll be tasty regardless, because that is fat's purpose in life, is to make things tasty. So, one last little bit of cooking, and then we will take it out, sprinkle it with sugar, and be ready to eat. So, back in a little bit. Okay, okay. Our chikishi is done. Out of the oven. And I'll just pick it up with a bit. I'm going to put it on the bed of breadcrumbs. There. And let me go get the sugar to sprinkle it with. Because like everything, it seems, from recipes in late 16th, early 17th, the last thing to do is sprinkle with sugar. Because that was showing off. Having sugar meant you had a lot of wealth, and wealth is something to show off. And go neener, neener, neener at people. So, anyway, there's dinner. Woohoo! And this ends the recorded part, and we will take questions in the live part next. Thanks. Bye-bye. See you.
Hello.
Hello. Oh, I wanted
What?
that.
Wait.
That,
Sorry.
that one was the second time I've done this recipe. I have a picture from the first time I did it. I'm going to share screen and show you how beautiful that chicken turned out. That was the first time I made this recipe. And as you can see, antlers and the head and all of that. And that was lovely. So now you got an idea. This chicken was a fatter, meatier looking bird. So it looks better than the one I did for the video. So I'll stop sharing here and come back. So let's see. I think many of the questions in the chat were answered while we were going through. Let's see, I don't know if there's any other questions out there people may have.
It's one was hard copy of the recipe. Is that in your notes?
I will put that on the SCA Iberia Facebook group, so people can get that. Yeah, as you can see from the picture I just showed, the first time it worked. The difference in the uncomfortable chicken yoga process between the first one and the second one's the video bird, first one's the picture bird, is that I did actually cut the feet off because the recipe says cut the leg bones to make them pointy. But then my thought after doing it that way was, well, then how do you get the feet to be antlers if you have cut them off? Which is why I tied them back on. There's also, if you're doing sticking the legs, feet, whatever, through the skin in the neck, the one on the video, it was on the back of the neck. If you do it through the front of the neck, you are more likely to get a more upright head. And an upright head helps with the whole antler presentation extravaganza, which is the point of this whole thing. I mean, that it is this funny looking bird with antlers. That's what we're going for.
Okay, other end of the leg bone at the hock, maybe?
Is the hock like the knee or heel kind of? Elsie, you are too educated for me for this. You know all the technical terms.
So what I was wondering when I heard you first talking about the recipe and where to make the cuts. So the hock is the ankle joint. It's where it comes together. And if you cut the tendons there and you file that long bone, which would be the equivalent of our foot, because chickens walk on their toes. If you filed the back part of that bone, and then that would let you kind of stick that in, and you'd still have the feet sticking up as antlers, was sort of my thought process. That's what I thought you were going to do when you first read the instructions.
Yeah. Okay, well, I have some other pictures. I'm going to share again and show you some of the other pictures from my first go round with this. Let's see. That's before cooking. Is that kind of what you're meaning? If you can tell.
Yeah, if instead of taking, yeah, you made the cut where I was thinking, but instead of taking it all the way off, you can actually slice the tendons right there. And you'll have enough of the skin and the connective tissue that it'll all still be connected. But where you made that cut, you could file that down and make basically a toothpick out of it. And then you'd be able to drive that back into the bird and maybe use that as an anchor point to keep the antlers sticking up and maybe keep the head up in place.
Okay, cool. Let's see, I have another couple pictures from the process. I'll just, since we have you all here, there's it from the other side. And they have ugly looking feet, don't they? I'm sure my feet are not the most lovely either, so there you go. Particularly not after being hacked off and stuck through a neck. There were weird things with the photos from that first bird, which is why they're all kind of off color. But as you can see, that bird was more meaty, not as slim as the bird in the video. So anyway, those are the photos from that one. Yeah, okay, and I'm not seeing any further questions. Your questions earlier about, Elsie, your questions earlier about if the eggs came from the chicken that's being cooked. That's quite possible. It's not specified in the recipe, or at least in the translation that I have. There may be, as with many period recipe manuals, there's frequently references in one recipe to another recipe. It's like, do it like we did before in the other recipe. And there may be something in that, in the context, that I don't have, that leads you to that conclusion, but I don't know yet. But when Professor Carolyn is finished with her translation, there will be more context, which is always good.
Why the little breadcrumbs versus smaller crumbs?
Oh, because I
Or
had a
cubes
bunch
and
of,
stuff.
oh, because I had them in the freezer.
Okay. I wouldn't want to roast a laying hen. The meat is tough. And Elsie wrote back, excellent. Yeah. So, I thought you didn't eat the chickens who could still lay. I thought you ate older chickens. Let's see, what's the next one? Is there something that could be used for using up young roosters?
Yes, yes, this would be good for young roosters, or, you know, if you need to send a message to the rest of the roosters in the flock that, hey, he's not coming back.
Which would explain wanting 4 of them? Why would you want 4 of them?
The recipe calls for 4 of them. I don't know if this is because of the number of people being served, or that you just had smaller birds. I don't have the context, so.
Oh, sorry. I should have just unmuted. But no, my suggestion was that this would be a really good dish to make with young roosters. Roosters that are almost full grown but haven't started crowing yet, so the meat is more tender, but they also aren't at full adult size yet. So that would explain why you want to use 4 of them. Because
right, because then you're making
you're talking about something that's like a little bit larger than a Cornish game hen, rather than like what we think of as a chicken that you would get from the grocery store.
And that way you wouldn't need a giant platter that fit 4 birds, because you have 4 smallish birds instead of 4 grown-up sized birds. That makes sense. Yes.
Okay. Young layers, similar to what Juana used, is what I was thinking. Next comment is, that makes sense. You can only have 1 rooster, so they probably ate the rest. Somebody else wrote, the rooster would make a nice head display.
Yeah, with the comb and all of that extra masculine display that they have. Yes.
And then the next comment was, eggs were smaller too. The eggs probably during the time were probably a little smaller, I guess. It's just a comment.
I have heard debate on that subject, but yeah, whether eggs were smaller then or not, I don't know. Elsie would know more about that, and the fellow in the middle whose Laurel is for chicken husbandry or something would probably have great detail on egg size.
Somebody said not necessarily in the response, and it's typically from Elsie, typically proportional to the hen, and it depends on the breed on how big the eggs are. So
yeah. Yeah, but the eggs in the stuffing are, I see them as primarily as binder for the other ingredients, not a dominant attribute of the flavor of the stuffing. Having the liver as the meat in the stuffing is a more assertive flavor than just roasted chicken meat. Some people like that, some people don't. I happen to like chicken livers, but I didn't have chicken livers this time, so.
Someone wrote,
yes, heritage Spanish chickens that made small, medium eggs. Huh. That's cool.
That is cool. Okay. I'm going to do a quick run through and probably butcher things, but I'm going to read some of the previous comments because they are not on the recording. If that makes sense.
Yes,
and then if
yes.
people want to add questions or if you want to bump in, you can do that. Some comments from the chat. Everything starts good with fatback onions. The Kindle book that was posted is $64.60 hardcover and is 68 EAP. I'm not quite sure. Check out Abe Books.
That's for the Food Matters, for Professor Carolyn's book.
Oh, okay. Can't buy books. That's okay. Spanish. Copy. If you're thinking for a Spanish version, look at Project Gutenberg. My late Norwegian, chicken laid small to medium eggs. Eggs scrambled hard before chopping. That was a question mark. And you answered with the egg is in the cooked portion is scrambled in. There isn't much of it. It's mostly a binder. Have gone from cooking to somewhat here to there, unknown sculpture. That positioning makes
talking about the cooking and then turning it into a presentation.
A presentation, yeah. That positioning makes so much sense for roasting a lighter multi-purpose chicken. If you have a small chicken, and the Iberian yoga, somebody liked that comment.
And the Spanish Inquisition comment.
And the Spanish Inquisition comment, yeah. It always be the antler recipe. And I think we're more or less caught.
Yeah, and somebody commented that would make quite an appropriate subtlety in the Outlands, because for those of you who don't know, the main charge in the arms of the Kingdom of the Outlands is a stag. It's got antlers, so yeah. Serving anything with antlers probably goes over really well in the Outlands.
Yep, and I think we have gotten caught up with the other questions.
The author's name of the original Spanish book is Francisco Martínez Montiño, which I'm sure, other than the Francisco part, because I can say that word, the last name I may be butchering, but I will include that in with the recipe that I will post to the SCA Iberia Facebook group. The name of the woman who did the translation is Professor Carolyn Nadeau, Nadeau, and she is the one who's doing she did the translation of this recipe, and is translating the entire work. Not yet published, will be soon. Every couple of months I send her another email. Is it done yet? Is it done yet? Not yet, but soon. She keeps telling me soon, but soon is a very elastic term, unfortunately. So I think we've covered everything, unless anyone wants to pop in with more questions. Oh, and I dressed up for class, see?
Yes, I see that. We got thank yous. Oh, how did it taste?
Oh, it's lovely. The egg coating on it keeps all the juices in the meat, so that it's nice and juicy. And the coating actually is tasty too. And then we took the carcass and made stock. Had pozole last night. The leftover meat is going into enchiladas tonight. So it's good. Yes, Frida. Period food is yummy.
Yummy! And if you're not in the West or had Juana as one of the teachers somewhere else, that's what we say sometimes when Juana comes up.
Yeah, I've got a whole kingdom brainwashed to end the phrase period food is
yummy.
Yeah, I got a whole kingdom that says that's great.
Okay.
Okay, we got some thank yous, and then looks like we're done. So
Yep.
people have a little time off before the next class.
Yep, I'm going to stop the recording.